Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Israeli offensive presses deeper into Gaza as it wages the second stage of its operation to eliminate Hamas. UAE calls emergency UN Security Council meeting to seek humanitarian pause to the Gaza fighting. Russia says that it's ready for talks on post-conflict settlement of Ukraine crisis and also coexistence with the West. Indian Prime Minister to launch nationwide Mera Yuva Bharat or My India platform for the youth on National Unity Day. It marks Sardar Patel's birth anniversary on the 31st of October. Multiple explosions rocked Gaza on Monday as Israel continued to expand its ground operations in the Gaza Strip. Israel's military has struck more than 600 militant targets, and it claims to have killed dozens of terrorists in this operation. On the other hand, thousands of Palestinians who have taken shelter at the Gaza Strip's biggest medical center, they have refused to heed Israel's call to leave the hospital. Malaysia, too, has criticized Israel and has urged for peace in the Middle East. Raghav Kumar Jha puts it into context.
Explosions and clouds of smoke covered the Israel-Gaza border on Monday as Israeli troops launched fierce air and artillery strikes into the enclave with a ground assault. Israel's military struck over 600 militant targets over the past few days as it continued to expand ground operations in the Gaza Strip. Israel's army said that Israel was gradually moving ahead according to plan in the Gaza Strip, and it has killed dozens of Gaza militants overnight. The Israeli military has also stepped up operations against Islamist groups in the West Bank.
Over the past day in Gaza Strip, we have expanded forces activities with additional forces entering the strip, including infantry, armored corps, combat engineering and artillery corps. Through integrated strikes of the ground air forces, dozens of terrorists were eliminated last night who had barricaded themselves in buildings and attempted to attack the forces that were moving in their direction.
Tensions also remain high at Israel's northern border, with the Israeli military and Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon exchanging fire. Many Israeli communities near the border have been evacuated of civilians as Israeli military forces have taken positions. On the other hand, Hamas also targeted Israel on Monday. A house was badly damaged after a rocket fired from Gaza hit the southern Israeli city of Netivot. In another incident in East Jerusalem, Israeli police shot dead a Palestinian on Monday after he stabbed and injured an Israeli border police officer. In view of this attack, Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir urged Israeli residents to carry firearms with them.
This incident stresses what I have already said a while ago. Go arm yourselves. We at the Ministry of National Security are also working on these projects. We are holding training classes.
Meanwhile, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who is on a two-day visit to Singapore, criticized Israel and urged for peace in the Middle East. Thousands of Palestinians have taken shelter at the Gaza Strip's biggest medical center, Al-Shifa Hospital, that has recently received evacuation orders from Israel. But civilians sheltering there say they have nowhere else to go and they won't leave their shelter. Raghav Kumar Jha reporting for DD India.
Well, the United Nations Security Council prepares to hold an emergency meeting on the Israel-Hamas situation at the request of the United Arab Emirates later today. The UN Security Council has failed in its attempts to stop the conflict in Gaza, as its members were unable to approve either the United States' resolution calling for humanitarian pauses or Russia's calling for an immediate ceasefire. Well, our correspondent Amritpal Singh is standing by. He's joining us now from Jerusalem. Amrit, it's day 24 of the Israel-Gaza conflict. How is the Israeli offensive proceeding in Gaza?
Well, the Israeli offensive, as the Israeli defense minister said, is in its second stage, which means that a limited ground offensive, though they've taken tanks inside. There were reports that tanks had reached the outskirts of Gaza City and they were firing at vehicles. That's what eyewitnesses told some news agencies operating out of Gaza. But Hamas has just released a statement saying that those tanks have retreated. The Navy, they're basically closing in from all three sides, air, sea and land. The Navy has sealed off the coast of the Gaza Strip. They position themselves there, though they are not directly involved in the offensive. But the idea is, that in the last stages, the Hamas guerrillas do not run away via sea, and also no arms and ammunition reaches them through sea. So there is the Navy is there, the Air Force is regularly pounding targets for the past 3 weeks, and the ground forces are inside in limited numbers with small weapons, tanks, of course guided by the UAVs and Israeli drones, plus the Israeli Air Force, pounding targets inside the Gaza Strip. Mark.
Amrit, the UN says that hundreds and hundreds of patients are stuck in hospitals in North Gaza, and civil order is starting to break down. In fact, Gazans are looting aid. Israel says that Hamas is using Al-Shifa hospital as a command center. Amid these claims and counterclaims, what can you tell us about the humanitarian situation in Gaza?
That's right.
You've been mobbed.
That's right. Just a moment.
Sure.
Yeah. In 2 minutes.
Yes, go ahead.
The Israelis had released some signals intelligence saying that the Hamas was using Al-Shifa hospital. This is just a group of kids in Jerusalem carrying Israeli flags. But that the Hamas was using hospitals there, and just a moment. They were using the Al-Quds hospital's base as a command and control center. What we hear that Tal Hawawa, where the Al-Quds hospital is there, that is being bombarded. A lot of aerial bombardment is going on there. So clearly, the Hamas is using these activities, but they are saying that the fact remains that the UN, after the UN warehouse was, attacked by the local people, the UN issued a statement saying civil order is breaking there. So that is really what the situation there is.
Amrit, Hamas, they say that 50 hostages have been killed in the Israeli strikes. They are also proposing an exchange of Palestinian prisoners with those who are held hostage. So, I mean, has the Israeli side given an update on the hostage situation?
Well, Israel says there are 229 hostages with the Hamas. Today, a German-Israeli lady by the name of Shani Lauk, her remains, she was abducted by Hamas and taken. She was at the Nova festival where, the Hamas guerrillas came in and abducted people and took them into the Gaza Strip. Her remains have been found, and they've been, her family here in Israel has been informed about it. The fact remains that, Hamas, as you rightly said, Hamas had claimed 2 days ago that 50 of the hostages were killed, but they say they were killed in Israeli strikes, air strikes. What a U.S. official has said, who's in the know of things, has said that there is there are negotiations going on. Hamas is insistent on two things. One, they put out a list of 6,600 Palestinians who are prisoners in Israel's jails. They want a prisoner swap. And second, they want fuel supplies to be allowed inside the Gaza Strip. Israel is adamant that it will not allow any fuel because it believes that Hamas will use them to fire rockets and use it for their military activity against the Israeli forces. But negotiations via Qatar are on the hostages.
Ongoing.
This is what the Minister for Economy today reiterated. And when Benjamin Netanyahu had met the families of the hostages, those taken hostage, he had reassured them that Israel is doing everything to get the hostages back.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Amritpal Singh joining us from Jerusalem. Well, Monday marks day 24 of the Israel-Hamas conflict, and the crisis in Gaza has deepened after the Israeli army kept up its ground assault on the enclave. It has displaced thousands more internally. The United Nations has once again called for a ceasefire or a pause in the fighting.
Hundreds of families in Gaza have taken shelter in these tents of Khan Yunis. When it rains, it drips onto the people beneath them. These people have little access to food and water.
We suffered a lot. We cannot handle it anymore. We wish we had died under the rubble just to find some rest. Our life is torture. Since yesterday, I haven't had any bread. Can a child wait for bread? Where do I get bread? It's catastrophic.
Israeli military has called Palestinians to evacuate the northern Gaza Strip in view of the ongoing ground offensive. Hospitals have also received warning to evacuate, but thousands injured are receiving treatments. Many of them are in emergency wards.
We have received various warnings today. They mentioned that this area is going to be a military zone, that there will be clashes and the area will be dangerous, and that we have to evacuate quickly.
Humanitarian aid supplies to Gaza have been severely disrupted. A grim picture of despair emerged from UN warehouses and distribution centers where people were seen looting boxes and bags of food aid. On the other side of the border, families of people taken hostage by Hamas are eagerly waiting for their loved ones. The United Nations has called for immediate release of hostages in Gaza and a humanitarian ceasefire.
The world is witnessing a humanitarian catastrophe taking place before our eyes. More than 2 million people with nowhere safe to go are being denied the essentials for life: food, water, shelter, and medical care, while being subjected to relentless bombardments. I urge all those with responsibility to step back from the brink. And I reiterate my appeal for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages.
Adding to international concern, the International Committee of the Red Cross has also called for a temporary ceasefire and the establishment of more sustainable aid assistance to the Gaza Strip.
Humanitarian pause is urgently needed in Gaza to save more lives.
Thousands of lives have been lost in the conflict. People have been displaced. West Asia is on the brink of a major humanitarian crisis. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
What's still to come here on DD India News Hour? A special guest will be joining us to discuss the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Russia says that it's ready for talks on post-conflict settlement of the Ukraine crisis. And as the UN chief visits Nepal, he urges the world to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं, अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं, नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. My name is Mark Lin. Casualties among the Hezbollah fighters and Israeli soldiers continue to increase in number, and so do fears that a new front in this conflict could develop in southern Lebanon. On Monday, Hezbollah announced that its chief, Hassan Nasrallah, will give his first televised speech since the beginning of this conflict in Gaza. DD India correspondent Mia Alberti reports.
As Israel expands its ground offensive in Gaza, there are fears about what that means for the people here in Lebanon. We continue to see daily fighting between Hezbollah and Israel, who are exchanging fire across that Israel-Lebanon border. But some are saying a third phase in this fighting is now underway. First of all, because the expansion of the fighting, shelling has been happening more than 10 kilometers away from that border, so much deeper into both Lebanese and Israeli territory than before. We're also seeing increased drone activity and Hezbollah launching surface-to-air missiles. That's the first time they've used this kind of powerful weaponry. And on Monday, Hezbollah also announced that the head of this Iran-backed group, Hassan Nasrallah, will give a speech this Friday. It will be the first time we see Nasrallah since the clashes broke out, which is a relevant development. And so the situation is incredibly tense. We're talking 46 Hezbollah fighters, 7 Israeli soldiers already killed. Beirut is empty. The economy has taken a hit. Airlines are canceling their flights, and people are overall scared, concerned, and reliving painful memories from that last war in 2006. And Lebanese don't want a repeat of that. On Monday, Prime Minister Najib Mikati said he is doing his duty to prevent Lebanon from entering the war. And even the Iranian foreign minister on Sunday said that Iran does not want the war to spread out. So we are seeing these diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the situation between Hezbollah and Israel. But as the days pass, the tensions at that border are growing, and so do the fears that the situation could spiral out of control. Mia Alberti in Beirut, reporting for DD India.
The World Bank has said that the global oil prices are expected to rise to $90 a barrel in the current quarter due to tensions in the Middle East. As per a report, the oil prices have already gone up by about 6% since the start of the conflict. And DD India's Sally Patterson sent us this report from New York.
Oil prices could be pushed into uncharted waters if the situation in the Middle East escalates, according to the World Bank. It warned that a worst-case scenario could see oil reach a record high of more than $150 a barrel. That's up from current levels of roughly $85 a barrel. The World Bank's latest commodity markets outlook outlines 3 risk scenarios based on historical events involving regional conflicts. Its large disruption scenario looks at the impact of the 1973 Arab oil embargo. Now, a disruption of that scale could remove as much as 8 million barrels of oil per day off the market, and that could send prices as high as $157 per barrel. The World Bank's chief economist warned the latest conflict in the Middle East comes on the heels of the biggest shock to commodity markets since the 1970s, and that's Russia's war with Ukraine. That had disruptive effects on the global economy that persist to this day. Now, the result of escalations in the Middle East could therefore see a dual energy shock on the global market and the global economy for the first time in decades. Economists warn sustained higher oil prices leads to higher food prices, and that could worsen food price inflation that's already been elevated in many developing countries. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
And we're going to be joined by a guest, Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. He served in Tel Aviv. He's joining us now. We're going to talk about the Israel-Hamas conflict. Ambassador Chakrabarti, how do you assess Israel's progress? This is an asymmetric battle with terrorists.
Well, yes, because any battle with terrorists or insurgent groups is asymmetric. But Israel has a huge problem and a dilemma because the hostage issue is coming center stage, apart from the fact that the longer this war continues, then the impact on the geoeconomic situation, as your reporter said, about oil prices and things like that, is going to affect almost all countries. So I think Israel is conscious of it. I think the Americans told Israel that you have to be careful about your ground operations. Hence, I don't think there has been an all-out, ground operation across Gaza, but it's more now, what shall I say, more, concentrated and calibrated ground operation on targets, etc. And you see, the hostage issue also is a very, very important issue because Israel is also under pressure, not just from their own domestic constituency, but there are hostages from different countries. And those countries are also, telling Israel that, look, we want the hostages to be returned alive. Right. And that gives a huge leverage to the Hamas in terms of, so some negotiations in the background are going on about the hostages. And therefore, Israel will probably be a bit constrained about what they do, because if the hostages, if they attack Gaza in a all-out thing, then the hostages might all get killed.
Yes,
because they're all being requested.
But Ambassador Chakrabarti, Israel is disputing the number of civilian casualties. These figures are being given by the Gazan authorities, 8,300 plus. Israel says this is a highly exaggerated number. Do you think Israel is taking care to minimize the civilian deaths? We know that they're just warning people to move out. Is that enough?
Well, they have done that, warning people to move out. But then that's an easy thing to say because people cannot move out so quickly. Where do they go? They have to have some place to go to. And some people have moved out. And Israel might claim that, yes, it has asked the civilians to move out and then say it's not our fault if the civilians are killed. But okay, in every war there are civilian casualties, and there is, apart from the actual hot war or the firing of bullets, etc., or rockets or whatever, there is this propaganda war also going on.
Yes.
So, in today's world, social media, etc., carries a lot of footage on which supports one side or the other. And so that is another thing that is influencing global opinion. And Israel has to be cognizant of that. Okay. And apart from the fact that the Palestinian question has always been there, particularly among Muslim countries, Arab and Muslim countries, for a very, very long time. So in this situation, they will also demand that the humanitarian situation, for example, is not very happy and it's very bad. So I think they will all put pressure on Israel.
But how deep-rooted do you think Hamas connections are? Because Hamas itself, you did talk about the resistance in a sense. In Arabic, it basically is an acronym for Islamic resistance movement. They are being supported by Islamic Jihad. They are saying so already on the ground. But how long drawn out do you think this conflict is going to be with all this kind of support?
Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, and their philosophy, etc., also like Islamic Jihad, etc., is aggressive in the sense that they want to fight. They want to do jihad against whatever their objectives are, and they have the backing in many ways of many countries in the Islamic world, the Muslim countries. It's become a kind of a Islamic issue and a Muslim issue, that Palestinian issue. And so the religious dimension and the faith-based dimension has also been injected in it. Apart from the long history of who was there first, if you go back to in history as to King David and things like that. So there is this huge complex issue of history.
Yes.
And the Balfour Declaration and Israel's creation. So it's not easy to solve.
Right. Final question, how does one control the rise of anti-Semitic feelings as well as Islamophobia that's rising in different parts of the world? We are already seeing, a lot of protest rallies coming out, demonstrations. Could they get violent? Different countries of the world would be involved.
I think we have seen protests across the world, not just in Muslim countries, but also in Western democracies and others, even in India, that that Palestinian cause has excited them, and I must say that they do have a cause in the sense that when 1948 the UN partition plan was passed. And Israel accepted it, that yes, okay, you partition Palestine, you give us Israel, but the Arabs rejected it, and they started, they said, we will not accept it, we will drive out Israel from this place. And then what happened in 1948? They launched a war, they lost it. 1967, they launched another war, it.
Right. Okay.
1973, they launched another war, they also lost it. So then they came to realize that Israel is a reality. So there was they should have been.
Sure, we leave it there, Ambassador Chakrabarti. We've run short of time. Thanks very much for joining us and putting this into context for us. Well, moving on to our next story. China has advocated that both China and the United States should have an objective understanding of each other's strategic intentions and take the correct view of competitive factors in future exchanges. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson made this remark when asked about China's top diplomat Wang Yi, saying that the road to a meeting between the country's leaders in San Francisco would not be smooth. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi called on the US President Joe Biden and his top aides in Washington, D.C. recently, where they agreed to work together. Now, still to come here on DD India News Hour. The US unveils wide-ranging action to mitigate AI risks.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए। बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा, इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं। अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं। नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर समझ कर इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lind. Here's a recap of our main stories. Israeli offensive presses deeper into Gaza as it wages the second stage of its operation to eliminate Hamas. The UAE calls an emergency UN Security Council meeting to seek a humanitarian pause to the Gaza fighting. And Russia says that it's ready for talks on the post-conflict settlement of the Ukraine crisis and also for coexistence with the West. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched development projects worth nearly $700 million in the western state of Gujarat. The projects are in sectors such as rail, road, drinking water and irrigation. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to be spending Tuesday in Ekta Nagar at Kewadia in Gujarat. This is the site of the Statue of Unity, and he's going to take part in the National Unity Day celebrations. He will pay tribute to the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, on his birth anniversary. Meghna Dev is there, she reports.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting the western state of Gujarat to participate in the National Unity Day celebrations at the world's tallest statue, the Statue of Unity.
This statue is dedicated to the unifier of India, to the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And his birth anniversary is celebrated as National Unity Day every year. This time around, this Unity Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be paying tributes to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel at the world's tallest Statue of Unity. And he will also witness the Unity Parade, which will have marching contingents from the Border Security Force, various state police forces, as well as a flypast by the Indian Air Force and much more.
Several development projects across the tribal belt of Kewadia will be on the itinerary, which the Prime Minister will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone for.
The Honorable Prime Minister would be inaugurating and doing the groundbreaking ceremony of various development projects of Ekta Nagar. It has always been the Prime Minister's dream and also the vision that Ekta Nagar be developed as a green city, if we may call it a city, but on the same initiatives like a green place. A lot of initiatives were taken on the same lines.
Besides this, the Prime Minister will address the officer trainees of the 98th Common Foundation course at the culmination of Arambh 5.0, which has 560 officer trainees from across 16 civil services of India and 3 civil services of Bhutan. Meghna Dev's report for DD India.
India's Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Thakur, attended the closing ceremony of the Meri Mati Mera Desh campaign at Kartavya Path in the national capital. And he said that the last 2 years, India has celebrated Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and crores of people participated in many programs, running into hundreds of thousands of programs organized under this platform. And he added that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for people's participation in the Meri Mati Mera Desh program, and the Amrit Kalash Yatras were organized in 6 lakh villages, 600,000 villages of India, and soil was collected from different corners of the country.
देश भर से 75,000 से ज़्यादा युवाओं का समागम जब यहाँ पर होगा तो अपने आप में देश के कोने से आए युवाओं को एक नई ऊर्जा मिलेगी प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के संबोधन से। और कल माई भारत प्लेटफॉर्म को भी लॉन्च करेंगे, मेरा युवा भारत, जो इतना बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म होगा कि देश के करोड़ों युवाओं को वहां पर जुड़ने का अवसर मिलेगा। परसों से रजिस्ट्रेशन शुरू हो जाएगी। और हम अगले कुछ महीनों में देश के करोड़ों युवाओं को माई भारत पोर्टल पर लॉन्च करेंगे। ये डिजिटल होगा, डिजिटल और फिजिकल दोनों एक्टिविटीज़ के लिए, और युवाओं को एक ऐसा अवसर मिलेगा कि सरकार और गैर सरकारी क्षेत्र के लोगों के साथ और कार्यक्रमों के साथ जुड़ सकेंगे।
In a significant step towards strengthening bilateral ties between India and Saudi Arabia, Ambassador Dr. Suhail Khan officially opened the India Pavilion at the B2B food exhibition held under the banner of the Flavour Expo in Riyadh today. And the India Pavilion at the Flavour Expo, it showcased the participation of more than 20 Indian exhibitors, each keen to explore the vast opportunities presented by the burgeoning Saudi Arabian food market. Flavour Expo is a global food and beverage event that is being held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia from October 29 to 31, 2023. It's the first government-backed F&B event in Saudi Arabia. It's also expected to attract over 40,000 visitors, 200-plus speakers, 600-plus exhibitors, 200-plus international investors and venture capitalists. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman addressed a global conference on cooperation in enforcement matters. It was organized by the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence in New Delhi. This happened on Monday, and the minister said that the conference, it should provide many practical ideas in the area of prevention and deterrence.
The most important silo which I want to talk about, and I keep referring it to a silo, but not to mean that it is so watertight that we cannot have things shared from it and into it, is the prevention and deterrence. Prevention of illegal trade, prevention of smuggling, prevention of those which are not at all desirable for any country's sovereign authority. And in prevention, deterrence is now a word which I would like to add. Almost you would say mean the same, but no, deterrence is also strengthened by the fact that you are alert, you've held back some of these smuggled goods, and you show a dedication and commitment to completely destroy what you've caught and not again put it into the market in one or the other way, even though it may be legitimate. So prevention and deterrence is that particular area in which I would think this global conference on cooperation in enforcement matter should give a lot of workable ideas.
The trial run of the Agartala Rail Link was conducted today. It was the first time the locomotive engine attached with 4 wagons entered into the Indian territory of Tripura. The ambitious Agartala Rail project will be flagged off by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina on November 1. Upon operationalization of the Agartala Rail Link project, the distance will reduce by around 500 kilometers, and the time travel also will be of 16 hours between Agartala and Kolkata. In addition, this rail link will also provide a direct access between landlocked northeastern India and Chittagong port of Bangladesh. Let's take a look at some other stories making the news. The Supreme Court of India has dismissed the bail application of the former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia in the Delhi excise policy scam case on Monday. A bench of Justices Sanjeev Khanna and S.V. Bhatti said that the prosecution had assured that the trial of the case would be over within 6 to 8 months. India's ruling party, BJP, has accused the Kerala Chief Minister of not paying attention to the rising radicalism in the state while condemning the Kalamamaseri blasts. Party President J.P. Nadda alleged that the Kerala government had been underplaying extremist activities. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel filed a nomination from his traditional seat, Patan, in Durg district for the upcoming assembly polls. Baghel has been elected 5 times from the seat. In the Kaveri water dispute, the Kaveri Water Regulation Committee has recommended Karnataka should release 2,600 cusecs of water per day to Tamil Nadu from the 1st of November to the 15th of November. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu told a military forum in Beijing that Moscow is ready for talks on the post-conflict settlement of the Ukraine crisis. He added that Russia is also ready for talks on further coexistence with the West.
The latest of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, one person died as both countries continue to attack each other, striking military targets, including drones, command posts and electronic warfare systems. Ukrainian authority has claimed that an 85-year-old woman was killed in heavy overnight shelling by Russia in Kherson. The Russian army was also reported to have repelled multiple attacks of the Ukrainian army in Kherson, Kupiansk and Lyman. Meanwhile, Russia has alleged that Ukraine played a direct key role in Dagestan unrest. On Sunday, hundreds of protesters broke through security to make it to the runway and inundate the area around the parked Russian carrier.
The mass riots that occurred on October 29 in the Republic of Dagestan results from a plan and carried out from outside provocation aimed at undermining at harmonious development and ethno-confessional unity of the people of Russian Federation. They are inspired by those who have repeatedly resorted to openly extremist and terrorist methods in order to destabilize the internal political situation in Russia.
There have also been talks of pacifying the ongoing war between the two countries. A day after, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko insisted that the two sides needed to sit down and negotiate an end to the conflict. An important announcement was made by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu told a military forum in Beijing that Moscow is ready for talks on the post-conflict settlement of the Ukraine crisis and for further coexistence with the West.
Russia is open to discussing and resolving any security issues if this dialogue is honest, fair and based on mutual respect of the contracting parties. However, without the West reconsidering its destructive line, which implies inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia, hardly any fruitful negotiations in this area are possible. However, should the necessary conditions be created, we remain ready for political discussions on realistic grounds, both on the post-conflict settlement of the Ukrainian crisis and on the parameters of further coexistence with the West as a whole.
Both Kiev and Moscow have made such statements earlier, but the conditions attached to it are important to arrive at a point where Russia's coexistence with the West is defined amid global turmoil.
The US has unveiled an extensive executive order on artificial intelligence aimed at tackling immigration, safety and also boosting technological advancements. The executive order establishes new standards for AI safety and security. It protects US nationals' privacy, advances equity and civil rights. The order mandates assessments for advanced AI models used by the US government workers, and it also will facilitate the entry of skilled workers. Now, more than ever, there is a pressing need for AI regulations. The governments across the world, in fact, they have emphasized the importance of addressing concerns such as misuse, threats and risks. Their efforts are focusing on promoting responsible use, fostering innovation and ensuring security. Let's take a look at some of the goals that are being pursued.
Artificial intelligence due to concerns about its misuse, threats and potential risks. Australia, the United Kingdom, China are developing codes, regulations and safety institutes to prevent deepfakes, artificial intelligence-generated child sexual abuse material and breaches.
Get this wrong, and AI could make it easier to build chemical or biological weapons. Terrorist groups could use AI to spread fear and destruction on an even greater scale. And in the most unlikely but extreme cases, there is even the risk that humanity could lose control of AI completely.
Meanwhile, today at Brussels, European Union is nearing an agreement on new AI rules and has initiated the development of a voluntary code of conduct to enhance global AI governance standards. Multiple countries, including France, G7, Italy and Japan, are also considering regulatory measures. Spain's Data Protection Agency is investigating potential AI-related data breaches. While in the United States, President Joe Biden today issued an executive order establishing new standards for AI safety and security. It protects Americans' privacy, advances equity and civil rights, stands up for consumers and workers, promotes innovation and competition. The United Nations and India aim for international collaboration in establishing ethical frameworks and global agencies for responsible AI usage. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for a global framework on the expansion of ethical AI tools. These regulatory efforts by international organizations, countries and regions underscore the recognition of the importance of responsible AI governance. The aim is to ensure the ethical and secure use of AI, promoting innovation while safeguarding against potential risks. Mihir Makri reporting for DD India.
Still to come here on DD India News Hour. India's Defence Minister Rajat Singh addresses the Goa Maritime Conclave 2023. He stresses on cooperation for security. The Spanish football chief, Luis Rubiales, is banned for 3 years for forced kiss. And Red Bull's 3-time world champion Max Verstappen creates Formula 1 history, becoming the first driver to take 16 victories in a season.
अब क्या देख रहे हो पापा?
तुम कहते हो ना कि स्टॉक मार्केट में बहुत सोच समझकर इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए। बस थोड़ा सा ज्ञान ले रहा हूँ।
किससे?
हर एक स्टॉक्स एक्सपर्ट है, मस्त एजुकेशनल वीडियोस बनाता है और अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की टिप्स भी देता है।
पापा इन वीडियोस पे ना जाएं। अपना रिसर्च खुद करें या सेबी रजिस्टर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर से संपर्क करें। एजुकेशन के नाम पर कुछ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स अक्सर इन्वेस्टर को मिसगाइड करते हैं। नुकसान आपका होगा।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
तुम्हें पता है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक इन्वेस्टर प्रोटेक्शन फंड होता है IPF, लेकिन अगर तुम्हारा ट्रेड एक्सचेंज पर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हुआ या फिर कोई गारंटीड रिटर्न्स वाली स्कीम है तो ये IPF आपकी मदद नहीं कर सकता है।
और अगर आपका ब्रोकर ही डिफॉल्टर बन जाए तो
फिर IPF आपको कॉम्पेंसेशन दिला सकता है।
कहाँ से सीखा?
NSE की साइट पर।
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. India's Defence Minister Rajat Singh has called for establishing multinational collaborative mitigation frameworks in the Indian Ocean region to effectively tackle common maritime challenges such as climate change, piracy, terrorism, drug trafficking, overfishing and also freedom of commerce on the high seas. He was delivering the keynote address at the 4th edition of the Goa Maritime Conclave on Monday.
The optimal outcome often involves cooperation and building trust among nations, but the fear of being taken advantage of or acting alone in the hostile world can lead to suboptimal decisions. The challenge is to find solutions that promote cooperation, build trust, and mitigate the risk associated with the prisoner's dilemma situations in international relations. Hence, it is important for the country to build trust between them so that optimally collaborative interaction is possible for our mitigation frameworks.
The air quality in India's capital, New Delhi, and surrounding areas remained in the very poor category for the third consecutive day on Monday. The Pollution Monitoring Agency recorded the air quality index at 322 with PM10 levels on Monday. The authorities have urged commuters to use public transport to avoid private vehicles while directing the government as well to increase the availability of electric buses and metro trains. People complained of a burning sensation in their eyes, as well as low sunlight. After a day-long strike on Sunday, Bangladesh's Nationalist Party, the BNP, and its alliances, they announced countrywide blockades for 3 consecutive days starting from Tuesday. The opposition's tougher stand is to press home their one-point demand and also to protest the alleged attacks on the party's Naya Paltan grand rally on Saturday. The BNP is pressing for the resignation of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government and the handing over of power to a non-partisan government which will be tasked with holding the next general election, which is due in January of 2024. Let's take a look at what other news is coming in from around the world. The Serbian President Alexander Vučić met the French, Italian and German leaders in Brussels on the sidelines of the EU summit to discuss pathways for de-escalating tensions with Pristina. Mexico's hurricane hit Acapulco is now on recovery after Category 5 storm Otis struck the coastal city a few days earlier. The hurricane left 48 people dead and 36 people missing and also caused widespread havoc. Keepers at London Zoo carved out Halloween pumpkins for animals and stuffed them with special treats in the run-up to Halloween. Whipsnade, UK's largest conservation zoo, is home to 245 species. Many of them are under threat of extinction. Nigeria has submitted the first of its kind pidgin language film, Mami Wata, as its candidate for the Best International Feature Film in the 96th Academy Awards. Mami Wata is an exploration and creative reimagination of the mythology of the titular mermaid deity of West African folklore. You're watching DD India News Hour, and it's time now for the sports news. Luis Rubiales, who's the former president of the Spanish Football Association, has been banned from football-related activities for 3 years by FIFA's disciplinary committee. The Zurich-based World Football Governing Body did not publish details of the verdict reached by its disciplinary committee, which had investigated charges relating to basic rules of decent conduct and behaving in a way that brings the sport of football and FIFA into disrepute, the report said. The former Spanish football chief can request the verdict within 10 days and also file an appeal to the FIFA, which is the World Soccer body. Manchester City registered a dominant Derby Day victory at neighbours Manchester United on Sunday. The 3-0 win at Old Trafford took the defending champions up to third place, 2 points behind the Premier League leaders Tottenham. Champions Napoli came back from 2 goals down to rescue a 2-2 draw at home against AC Milan in Serie A. They preserved their top 4 spot in the standings. Napoli winger Matteo Politano and the forward Iacio Raspadori both scored after the break to cancel out 2 goals deficit. The game got off to a lively start and Giroud had an early chance, but his shot from close range was cleared by Napoli's defence. The Frenchman made no mistake when he broke the deadlock for Milan in the 22nd minute, nodding home the opener from an assist by Christian Pulisic. Red Bull's 3-time world champion Max Verstappen made Formula One history as the first driver to take 16 victories in a season. He won a crash-halted and action-packed Mexico City Grand Prix on Sunday. The 26-year-old Dutch equaled the French great Alain Prost's haul of 51 career wins with his 5th win in 6 editions of the Mexican race at the Autodroma Hermanos Rodriguez.
Don't be sure on the revs. Straight into it.
New Zealand's forward Ardie Savea was named Rugby World Cup Player 15 of the Year. Though All Blacks lost the Saturday final in the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, Xavier was chosen ahead of the Irish centre Bundy Aki, South Africa's lock Ibn Itbit, and France's captain Antoine Dupont. Xavier is the 11th All Black to win the award, which was first introduced in 2001. He had been a finalist in 2019. His award comes after a stellar season in which he helped New Zealand to win the Rugby Championship and a place in the World Cup final, which they lost 12-11 to the Springboks on Saturday. Ireland's Andy Farrell was chosen as World Rugby Coach of the Year, while the All Blacks winger Mark Telles won the award for Breakthrough Player of the Year. Well, 30th October is the 114th birth anniversary of the father of India's nuclear program, Dr. Homi Jahangir Bhabha. Here's a look at the major contributions, achievements, and lesser-known facts about the renowned nuclear physicist. Well, in news just coming in, at the ICC World Cup match between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka in Pune. Afghanistan has won the match. They've beaten Sri Lanka. They've scored 242 for 3 in 45.2 overs. It was a comprehensive win with almost 4 overs to spare. In fact, it was a great win. The winners of the scorecard, let me just give you who won scored. Azmalullah Omar Zal hit 73 not out, and Hashmullah Shahidi had 58 not out. They put on over a 100-run partnership to take their team home. Good batting display and also an excellent bowling display, which had restricted Sri Lanka to 241 all out in 49.3 overs. So the giant-killing Afghanistan continues to win. That's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. But we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.